So I was just on a month-long travel expedition. It started with 2.5 weeks in Tibet. And it was another mission, which is really interesting because I was in Tibet last year at almost exactly the same dates, just 2 days off, unplanned. And so I invited a previous partner of mine to come. And I didn't invite her to come to be like, let's definitely get back together. I invited her to come this time, not from a desire of being together, but from pure exploration of let's see what happens, non-attached, right? Not wanting partnership, which could be, God be like, okay, if you want partnership, I'm going to give you the opposite of partnership, which is, I don't know, friction and fighting.
And there wasn't even a shred of desire in you.
There was. I did let her know that I would love to.
Yes,
but
yes.
I'm not going to force it. It is not an intent. I'm not going to be moment to moment trying to get you to be my partner.
Yeah.
And so, because I realized a few months ago, I was like, in the last 1.5 years, every area of my life has been beyond miraculous and magical except partnerships. And I was like, why? And I was like, duh. Every area of my life, I let go of all desires, except in partnerships, I was like, I want a partner. It was so obvious, but I didn't catch it. So once I let it go, she went on the mission with me. And what's really interesting is we are entering back into a partnership, but it was not without tremendous friction, and I'll share, I'm open book. About 1.5 weeks into this mission, we were definitely coming closer and closer, right? It was incredible. And I was divinely guided. It was like 2 a.m. I was divinely guided to get on her phone. And 2 a.m., she's asleep. I was asleep. I woke up. Her phone is actually unlocked and open, which is quite strange. So I get on her phone. I was guided to look at some of her messages. And I saw that even while she was in Tibet with me, she was messaging other men and being very flirtatious and sexual in the texts. And I did not sleep that night because my electrical system was I was having a very heightened emotional experience, right? Of like just distrust, betrayal, anger, all of it came up. And it took us about the next 2 weeks to process all of that, right? And so I was given this full pendulum swing of, oh yeah, partnership, sure, you'll feel that. Oh, I'm going to totally wreck that and put you in a sense of betrayal and all the victim and all the things that you haven't processed on the other end within this container. That was my last month. Yeah.
What was the fruit of the pendulum? What came through?
Well, she's at my house right now, and we're working on it. So, yeah,
that's so good.
Yeah,
the divine orchestration. That's the phrase that's come through with you a lot. This orchestration.
Yeah.
I feel like my sense of love has been so convoluted and distorted. And a lot of it has come from, I've shared with my audience very openly about the pornography issues in my life and my journey with breathwork and psychedelics and healing to overcome that.
Yeah. And
I say that because I think we're all unpacking and unraveling probably millennia of conditioning. And I'm getting like shooting energy through my chest right now, just talking to you about this, because I know, I trust that every single man who may listen to this or absorb this podcast has had some type of dance with, let's just call it distorted sexual energy.
For sure.
I don't need to know why God needs to experience God in this distorted energy, because you've covered that. But there also is malevolent forces in the world that are by their own polarity swing, pushing us back to love. Have you personally, or the people you've worked with, ever dealt with distorted sexual energy? And if so, what is the path to healing and wholeness around sexuality, here in modernity especially?
The short answer of noticing other people constantly.
Especially here in Austin.
Especially
Good
here in
God.
Austin. Especially here in Austin.
Polyamory bullshit.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Especially here in Austin.
Anyways, go ahead.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down. And so, yeah, I guess first I'll address the whole, well, if everything is God, then what does that mean?
Yeah.
Just look at the yin yang symbol, right? It's got the white swirl with the black and the dot.
It's on the screen right now. This is a good visual.
Right. Yin and yang. We can say there's light and dark. There's white and black. And there is. But what's also true is it's the yin and yang symbol, which means it's one. So the entire symbol is God, but within God, there has to be, because it needs contrast to experience itself, a light and a dark. And then the fact that the dot in the black part has a white dot and the white part has a black dot is hinting at it's still just one, right? Even though visually it looks like two separate things. I just want to give that context so what I'm about to say makes a little bit more sense. And so what we would call malevolent forces, which probably because of condition, we would call that the black part.
Or we may call it demonic.
Right.
Things like that.
Right. Evil, demonic, dark, dense, so many terms for it. Yes, that exists, but technically it is still part of the yin yang symbol. So which means it's part of God. God has to create a dense experience of itself so that it has contrast to experience the light of itself. Right. And so the reason I'm mentioning this is, yes, I have seen the malevolent, demonic, evil, whatever forces do its thing on sexual, and I'll get to why sexual, but I don't judge it. Right. I don't approve of it. Right. It's not what I would want in my life constantly, but there's no judgment of it being bad or wrong or evil, because I'm like, got it. This is just this has to happen for it to experience itself in multiple ways. Right. Once I sort of let go of judgment and I navigate, clearly I don't want distortion, sort of in my field. And so it shows up so subtly. This is a very tricky topic. And first I'll preface it with, I'm definitely not the expert to speak on this. There's tons of people who are experts on this very specific topic of sexual distortion energy. I think the shaman that I work with, Kurakindi down in Ecuador, would be an amazing person. I mean, that was like boot camp training for 10 days to like experience the most subtle aspects of that. It was so subtle. I was there with someone, just friends, but she did have an intention of like wanting something more than friends. And we're sitting in ceremony and they're basically screaming at her and me that we're leaking this sexual energy. Even though I had no intention whatsoever, I'm just sitting there meditating, but it was so subconscious and subtle until they pointed it out. When they first pointed it out, my ego was like, no, that's not there. But the rest of the night, I felt it. Right? It was like undetected until they pointed it out. And I just want to give that story so I don't come across like I know how to detect all the things. But from my perspective, from my experience, I would say, one, I'll say the reason sexual energy is that's creative force. If you can distort creative force, you can distort creation, right? Which is why the other team would want to distort that. And as far as discernment of it, I guess, I'm also a huge fan of like, what's the context that can give the most clarity? And it goes back to, I like to keep it simple. If you're ever coming from lack, I'm like lacking something, and you're doing something, and if that thing is involving in a sexual energy realm, you want to double check your reason. Because that lack is the opposite of whole, and whole would be God. And so if you're in the lack space, which is separation, there's something else that I need, right? An other and self, then typically there might be a little bit of distortion in that reason.
If you like that clip, click the one that's on the screen now, and I promise you'll enjoy it just the same, if not more.